Chapter 1. The Door. I didn't go to that house looking for love. I went because I was tired of waking up afraid. Not loud fear. Quiet fear. The kind that doesn't scream or shake the walls. The kind that sits in your chest like a stone and never moves. The kind that follows you from morning to night without making a sound. It doesn't rush you. It waits. It watches. It makes your world smaller without asking permission. That morning, I woke before the alarm. My eyes opened, but my body stayed still. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. The paint above my bed had a thin crack running across it, like a line someone forgot to fix. I traced it with my eyes, again and again. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I didn't reach for my phone. I only thought. How long can a person live like this? How long can fear choose your morning before you do? The room was quiet, too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, slow, careful, like I was afraid even that might wake something bad. I lay there, holding myself inside my own body, waiting for the day to start without me. My name is Ava Harper. I was 22 years old then. I lived alone in a small room with thin walls and a window that faced another building. No view, no sunlight in the morning, just gray concrete and other people's closed curtains. I had no parents, no family, no one to call when my hands started shaking for no clear reason, no voice that would say, "It's okay, you're not alone." Silence answered everything. Every day followed the same pattern. I woke early, I washed my face with cold water, I dressed carefully even when my clothes were old. I wanted to look like someone who belonged in the world, someone worth choosing. Then I went out and searched for work. I walked from place to place with my resume folded in my bag like a fragile thing. I waited in lines. I smiled when spoken to. I listened closely. I heard maybe a lot. "We'll call you. Leave your number. Check back next week." Maybe. At first, maybe felt hopeful. It sounded like a door still half open. But days passed, then weeks, and maybe became something else. Silence. No calls, no messages, no answers. Just empty space where hope had been. In the evenings, I returned to my room and counted my money again and again. I spread the bills on my bed and lined up the coins carefully, like order might change the result. Each count felt smaller. Each count felt heavier. I told myself I would make it work. I always did. But my chest stayed tight. Fear doesn't listen to logic. Fear only listens to time, and time was not on my side. That morning, after lying in bed too long, I finally stood up. My legs felt weak, like they didn't trust the floor. I moved slowly, afraid to rush the day. I made myself a cup of tea and let it cool without drinking it. Then I opened the newspaper. I didn't expect much. I had already seen most of the ads. They blurred together now. But my eyes stopped on one small box near the bottom of the page. It wasn't big. It wasn't loud. It didn't promise the world. Just a few simple lines. A family needs a live-in helper. 2 children, good pay, safe place. Safe place, those 2 words stayed in my head. They didn't shout. They didn't rush. They waited quietly, like they understood me. Safe place. Not success, not dreams, just safety. Somewhere my body could rest. Somewhere fear might loosen its grip, even a little. My hands started shaking as I folded the paper. I pressed my fingers together, trying to stop them. I told myself not to overthink. I told myself I had nothing to lose. Still, my heart was beating fast. On the bus right there, my thoughts wouldn't stop. What if they say no? What if they look at me like I'm nothing? What if I fail again? The bus felt too slow and too fast at the same time. Every stop made my chest jump. I watched buildings pass by the window, wondering which ones held lives that felt stable. I wondered what it was like to wake up without fear waiting for you. When I reached the address, I got off the bus and stood on the sidewalk. I didn't move right away. The house stood in front of me, tall and quiet. The windows were clean. The door was dark and solid. Everything looked perfect, but perfect doesn't always mean warm. Sometimes perfect means empty in a careful way. I stood there for a full minute, maybe more. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. I wiped my palms on my coat. I told myself it was just a door, just a bell, just a moment. My hand felt heavy as I lifted it. I rang the bell. The sound echoed inside the house. Then silence returned. My heart felt like it might jump out of my chest. I took one step back without meaning to. Then the door opened. A man stood there. His name was Aiden Walker, though I didn't know it yet. He was tall, with broad shoulders that seemed tired of carrying weight. His face looked worn, not old, just heavy. His eyes were sad in a quiet way, like they had seen too much and decided not to talk about it. He didn't smile. He looked at me for a moment before speaking. His voice was calm, distant. "Why are you here?" The question wasn't rude. It wasn't kind either. It was simple, honest. I swallowed and told him my name. I told him I came for the job. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. He listened without interrupting. Then he nodded once and stepped aside. That small step felt huge. It felt like permission, like the world saying, "Enter if you're brave enough." I crossed the doorway with careful steps, as if the floor might disappear beneath me. Inside, the air felt still, clean, quiet. Not safe, not dangerous, just unsure. I didn't know it yet, but that door was not just a door. It was a threshold, a line between the life I had been surviving and a life I might finally belong to. Chapter 2. A House Full of Silence. The house was clean, too clean. Not the kind of clean that feels welcoming, but the kind that feels careful, like someone had wiped away every trace of living and left only order behind. The floors shined. The furniture stood in perfect places. Nothing was broken, nothing was out of place. And yet something felt missing. It felt like the house had stopped breathing, but no one noticed. Aiden walked ahead of me, showing me the rooms one by one. His steps were quiet. His movements were measured, like he didn't want to disturb the space. He spoke only when needed. His voice was polite, calm, and distant, as if the words had to travel a long way before reaching his mouth. I followed him closely, listening more to what he didn't say than to what he did. The living room was large and bright, but it felt cold. The couch looked unused, like it existed only to be looked at. The kitchen was spotless. No dishes in the sink, no smell of food in the air. Everything was ready, yet nothing felt alive. I wondered who had last laughed there. I wondered how long it had been since anyone sat without thinking. Then Aiden stopped walking. "This is the children's room," he said. That was when I saw them. Nico and Hazel stood near the window. Twins, 7 years old. They were almost the same height, dressed in simple clothes, their hands close to their sides. They stood so near to each other that their shoulders touched, like they were holding each other upright. They did not turn around right away. When they finally did, their eyes dropped to the floor. They didn't smile. They didn't speak. They looked like eye contact might hurt. Aiden cleared his throat softly. "This is Ava," he said. "She will help us." No response. Not rude silence. Not stubborn silence. Broken silence. The kind that comes from something cracked inside and never fully healed. I smiled, even though my face felt tight. I wanted to say something kind, something simple, "Nice to meet you," or "hello," but the words stayed stuck. I didn't want to push. I didn't want to scare them away with sound, so I stayed quiet too. Aiden told me their mother's name was Allison. He said she died a year ago. His voice didn't change when he said it. No pause, no shake, just the sentence, delivered like information. But I could feel the pain behind it, heavy and hidden, like a door he refused to open because he wasn't sure he could close it again. He told me the children changed after that. He changed after that. The house changed after that. He didn't explain how. He didn't need to. I could see it. Silence lived in every corner. It rested on the walls. It waited in the air. That evening, Aiden told me I could stay if I wanted the job. He didn't pressure me. He didn't try to convince me. He just said it and walked away, leaving the decision with me. I carried my bag into the small room that would be mine. It was simple: a bed, a desk, a window facing the yard. It felt temporary, like it was waiting to see if I would disappear too. I sat on the bed and looked at my bag. Everything I owned was inside it: clothes, papers, a few small memories. I thought about my empty apartment back home. The quiet there felt lonely. This quiet felt different. It felt crowded with things no one said. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, just like I had that morning. Only now the questions were different. I thought about Nico and Hazel standing so close together. I thought about how they didn't cry, how they didn't speak. I realized they were waiting, not for a new person, not for comfort. They were waiting for someone who would never come back. That thought hurt more than I expected. I told myself I came here for work. I reminded myself that this wasn't my pain. I wasn't responsible for fixing anything. But another feeling rose quietly beneath those thoughts. I felt needed, not in a dramatic way, not in a heroic way, in a small, human way, like my presence might matter, even if my words didn't. That night, I barely slept. The house made sounds as it settled, soft creaks, distant steps. I listened carefully, afraid that if I slept too deeply, I might miss something important. In the morning, I woke early and sat on the edge of the bed. My chest felt tight again, but it wasn't the same fear as before. This fear was heavier. It came with responsibility. When I stepped into the kitchen, Nico and Hazel were already there. They sat quietly at the table. They didn't look up when I entered. I moved slowly, afraid of breaking something invisible. I placed plates in front of them. My hands shook slightly. "Good morning," I said softly. Hazel nodded without lifting her head. Nico didn't respond at all. I wanted to talk. I wanted to fill the silence. But something inside me said, "Wait." Silence can be a shield for children who are hurting, so I respected it. I stayed nearby, not too close, not too far. I cleaned, I organized, I watched. At one moment, Hazel dropped her spoon. The sound was small, but her reaction was not. She froze. Her body went stiff. Her eyes filled with fear, like she was waiting for something bad to happen. My heart jumped. I moved carefully, slowly. I picked up the spoon and placed it back in front of her. "It's okay," I said. Nothing happened. No anger, no punishment, no raised voice. Hazel looked at me for 1 second. Just one. But in that second, something passed between us. Recognition, relief, pain. Then she looked away. But that moment stayed with me. Aiden passed through the room a few times that morning. He didn't stop. He didn't interrupt. But I noticed his eyes. He watched the children from a distance, like he wanted to step closer, but didn't know how, like he was afraid his presence might remind them of what they lost. That afternoon, when the house grew quiet again, I sat alone in my room. I thought about leaving. I thought about how easy it would be to pack my bag and return to my old life. Familiar fear, familiar loneliness. But then I remembered Hazel's frozen hands, Nico's lowered eyes. I whispered to myself, maybe this door is not just a door, and I chose to stay. Chapter 3. Children Who Forgot How to Laugh. Nico and Hazel didn't cry much. That surprised me. When people talk about grief, they imagine tears, loud sadness, shaking shoulders, and broken voices. They imagine children screaming or asking questions that have no answers. But grief does not always arrive like that. With children, grief often hides. It becomes stillness. It becomes quiet. It becomes a careful way of moving through the world, as if one wrong step could cause everything to fall apart. They moved slowly, like they were afraid of making noise. They spoke in pieces, never full sentences, never long thoughts. A word here, a nod there, sometimes nothing at all. They watched the front door many times a day, not in an obvious way, just quick glances, small pauses, like the door might open if they looked at it long enough, like miracles needed attention to arrive. I realized very early that rushing them would only push them farther away, so I decided to do nothing dramatic. I didn't push hugs, I didn't ask big questions, I didn't say, "You can talk to me." Words like that can feel heavy to children who are already carrying too much. Instead, I stayed nearby. I made myself visible, but not demanding. I let silence exist without trying to fix it. One morning, Hazel dropped her spoon at the breakfast table. The sound was small, metal against wood, but her body reacted as if something terrible had happened. She froze. Her back went straight. Her hands stopped moving. Her eyes filled with fear, wide and shiny, like she was waiting for someone to be angry, like she was waiting for a mistake to turn into punishment. My heart jumped. I moved slowly so I wouldn't scare her. I bent down, picked up the spoon, and placed it back beside her plate. My voice was calm when I spoke. "It's okay. Nothing bad happened. No raised voice, no sharp movement, no consequences." Hazel looked at me for 1 second, just one. But in that second, I saw something deep. Not anger, not defiance, not stubbornness. I saw fear, old fear, learned fear, the kind that comes from moments when accidents were followed by pain, not understanding. Then she looked away, but the tension in her shoulders softened just a little. That moment stayed with me all day. Later, Nico sat at the table with his homework spread in front of him. He stared at the page like it was an enemy he didn't know how to fight. His pencil rested in his hand, unmoving. His jaw was tight. His eyes were dark with frustration and something else beneath it, something heavier. I sat down beside him without speaking at first. I didn't want to interrupt his thoughts. After a while, I said gently, "We can try together." He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the page. Then, after a long pause, he whispered, "Mom used to help me." The words were quiet, but they landed hard. My throat tightened, my eyes burned. I swallowed. I didn't say, "Don't be sad." I didn't say, "Be strong." Those words can feel like doors closing when someone needs space to feel. Instead, I said the only true thing I knew. "She loved you very much." Nico nodded once and looked down again. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, but something shifted. His shoulders relaxed just a little. We sat in silence after that. No fixing, no advice, just shared space. That became the pattern. Tiny truths, tiny safety. I learned that healing does not always come from big conversations. Sometimes it comes from knowing that a dropped spoon will not end the world. Sometimes it comes from hearing one honest sentence and letting it rest. One afternoon, when the house felt especially quiet, I placed paper and colored pencils on the table. I didn't call the children over. I didn't explain. I just set them there and sat a little away, pretending to organize something else. No pressure, no instructions. Hazel noticed first. She stared at the pencils for a long time before touching one. Her fingers hovered, uncertain. Then she picked a color slowly, like she was afraid of choosing the wrong one. Nico watched her, then reached for a pencil too. They began to draw without speaking. Small movements, careful lines. I stayed quiet. I didn't look over their shoulders. I didn't comment. I let them own the moment. After a while, Hazel pushed her paper toward me. It wasn't a clear picture, just lines, shapes, something unfinished. She looked at me and said quietly, "This is us." My chest hurt in a way that felt warm and sharp at the same time. "It's beautiful," I said. She didn't smile, but she didn't pull the paper back either. She let it stay between us like a bridge she wasn't sure was strong yet. Another day, Nico asked me a question while we were sitting quietly in the living room. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "Do people go away even if you are good?" The question caught me off guard. It was too heavy for a child his age, but grief does not care about age. I turned to him slowly. "Sometimes people go because life is unfair, not because of you." He nodded, thinking. He didn't ask anything else, but I saw something change in his eyes. The question didn't disappear, but it rested, like it had finally been heard. Hazel started sitting closer to me after that. Not touching, just near. She followed me from room to room sometimes, stopping where I stopped, standing quietly like a shadow. One evening, she said, "Mom used to sit like this." I felt tears rise. I didn't hide them. "I know she loved you very much," I said again. "I know," Hazel whispered. That was the first full sentence she spoke to me. Aiden watched all of this from a distance. He never interrupted, he never stepped in, but I could feel his presence like someone standing at the edge of deep water, unsure if they should move forward. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. Nico laughed. It was small, quick, almost accidental, like a sound that escaped before he could stop it. Hazel looked at him surprised. Then she laughed too. Not loud, not long, but real. My heart stopped for a moment. I turned my head and saw Aiden standing in the hallway. He hadn't planned to be there. He hadn't meant to listen. His eyes were wet. His face was still, like he was afraid to move. "I thought I lost that sound forever," he whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. In that moment, I understood something clearly. Healing isn't dramatic. Healing isn't loud. Healing doesn't arrive all at once. Healing is small. Healing is slow. Healing is someone staying when it would be easier to leave. And for the first time since I walked through that door, I felt certain I was exactly where I needed to be. Chapter 4. The Man Behind the Closed Door. After that, I noticed Aiden more. Not in a romantic way, not with curiosity or hope, in a careful way. The way you notice a quiet sound after a loud room finally empties. The way you notice someone who has always been there but never fully present. He was always near the children, yet far at the same time. He stood in doorways. He paused at the ends of hallways. He watched without stepping in. He watched the children like a man watching something fragile, like glass already cracked, like one wrong touch might cause it to shatter completely. His hands stayed at his sides. His voice stayed low. His body leaned forward, but his feet never moved closer. It was as if his heart wanted one thing, and his fear wanted another. One evening, Nico ran toward him holding a piece of paper. It happened fast, without warning, like instinct took control before fear could stop him. The paper shook slightly in Nico's hand. He stood in front of Aiden and held it up, waiting. Aiden took the paper slowly, like he was afraid of tearing it. He stared at the drawing for a long time. His eyes moved carefully across the lines. "This is very good," he said. His voice shook. Nico didn't move. He didn't smile yet. He waited, like he needed more than praise, like he needed proof. Proof that this moment would not disappear, proof that attention would not fade too quickly. Aiden saw that. He swallowed and added, softer this time, "You did a great job." Nico smiled. It wasn't big, it wasn't loud, but it was real. Aiden watched that smile like it was a miracle, like something he thought had left forever had just returned, quietly, without asking permission. His eyes filled with something close to pain, close to relief. He handed the drawing back with care, as if he were returning something precious. That moment stayed with him. Later that night, when the children were asleep, Aiden spoke to me in the kitchen. His voice was low, almost hesitant. He stood near the counter, not sitting down, not fully relaxed. "They talk more with you," he said. I answered simply, "They feel safe." He looked down at the floor. His shoulders dropped slightly, like the words carried weight. Then he whispered, "I failed them." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to tell him everything he did right. But I didn't. Because guilt is not defeated by loud words. Guilt does not listen when someone tries to pull it away too fast. It holds tighter. So I said, gently, "You stayed. That matters." He looked at me for a long time. His eyes searched my face, like he was checking if I truly believed what I said. Then he nodded slowly and said, "Staying feels hard." I understood. Some people think leaving is the painful choice. They think walking away is what hurts the most. But sometimes staying is the harder pain. Staying means waking up every day to the empty chair. Staying means seeing reminders everywhere. Staying means choosing to face loss instead of running from it. Staying means remembering. Aiden stayed in that house after Allison died. He stayed in the rooms where her voice once lived. He stayed at the table where her chair remained empty. He stayed in the silence. He didn't leave because leaving felt like another kind of death. But staying came with its own cost. Aiden wasn't cold. He wasn't distant by nature. He was scared. Grief didn't harden his heart. It closed it, like a door stuck from too much weight behind it. Every feeling pressed against that door at once. Guilt, love, regret, fear. He kept it shut because he didn't know what would happen if it opened. I began to see the small ways grief controlled him. He avoided certain rooms. He never touched Allison's things. He spoke her name rarely, and when he did, his voice changed. He watched the children instead of joining them. He listened instead of speaking. Silence became his shield. One night, Hazel woke up crying. Her voice was small, frightened, broken in pieces. I moved quickly toward her room, but I noticed Aiden standing in the hallway, frozen. His hands were clenched. His face was pale. He didn't know what to do. I went to Hazel first. I spoke softly. I told her she was safe. I stayed until her breathing slowed. Aiden stood at the door, watching, learning. When Hazel fell asleep again, he whispered, "She used to call for her mom." I nodded. "I don't know how to be both father and mother," he said. His voice broke on the last word. "You don't need to be both. You just need to be there." He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. That was the first time I saw him let the pain come out instead of pushing it down. It didn't explode. It didn't overwhelm him. It simply existed, and he survived it. From that night on, Aiden tried more. Not perfectly, not bravely, honestly. He sat with the children longer. He stayed in the room even when it hurt. Some days he failed, some days he walked away, but he always came back. One evening, he said something that stayed with me. "I don't talk because words remind me of what I lost." I answered quietly, "Silence can protect, but it can also trap." He nodded slowly. He understood. I realized then that Aiden was not emotionally absent. He was emotionally overloaded. He loved deeply, and because of that, he suffered deeply. Watching him learn how to open that door again was painful and beautiful at the same time. I felt respect for him, not attraction, not romance, respect. Respect for a man who stayed when life gave him every reason to leave. Chapter 5. The Woman Who Didn't Want Me There. Her name was Cora, Allison's sister. She arrived one afternoon without calling, without warning, like a sudden change in weather. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her face, not because she was loud, not because she raised her voice, but because of the look in her eyes. Judgment, not heavy, sharp. Her eyes moved slowly from my face to my clothes, then to the children. She noticed everything. The way Nico stood close to me, the way Hazel followed me into the room, the way the house felt different now, even if nothing looked different. She smiled, but her smile felt like ice, cold, polite, careful, the kind of smile that does not welcome, only measures. She spoke kindly to Aiden. Her voice softened when she said his name. She asked about the children. She commented on the house. Everything sounded normal, but when she turned to me, the warmth disappeared. She asked simple questions, one after another, in a calm voice that felt sharp underneath. How long have you been here? What do you do all day? Do the children listen to you? I answered calmly. I kept my voice steady. I chose my words carefully. Inside, my heart was racing. Each question felt like a test I didn't know I was taking. I could feel her watching my reactions, not my answers, measuring, deciding. When Aiden stepped away to take a phone call, the air changed. Cora turned to me and the kindness dropped. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. "You're getting too close to the children," she said. I was surprised by how quickly the words came. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just certainty, sharp and clean. I took a breath before answering. "They need care," I said. She laughed quietly, not amused, dismissive. "They need control, not comfort." That sentence hit me like a slap. Not because it was said loudly, but because it revealed something deeper. It wasn't just about me, it was about how some people treat grief, like a problem to manage, like a mess to clean up, like pain should be controlled instead of understood, as if comfort were dangerous, as if softness made things worse. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to explain everything I had seen, everything I had learned from watching the children. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence is safer than truth, especially when truth would only harden someone who is not ready to listen. That evening, Cora stayed for dinner. She sat at the table like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Maybe she did. Maybe that was part of the problem. She watched everything. How Hazel ate slowly, how Nico glanced at me before speaking, how the children relaxed when I was near. At one point, she said, casually, "Children forget fast. They move on." The words landed hard. Nico stopped eating. His fork froze in his hand. Hazel's eyes dropped to her plate. The room went quiet. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and sudden, but I controlled it. I spoke softly. "They remember love that stays." Cora looked at me for a long moment. Her lips curved into another smile, but her eyes didn't smile at all. That smile stayed with me long after dinner ended. The next day, Cora didn't leave. She stayed around the house, watching more closely. She commented on small things. She corrected the children's posture. She reminded them of rules. Her presence filled the rooms in a way that felt heavy, not comforting. I could feel the children pulling back again, becoming quieter, smaller. Later that afternoon, she found me alone in the hallway. "Don't think you can take my sister's place," she said. The words were sharp and direct. No smile this time, no softness. My face burned. Not because I felt guilty, but because I felt accused. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I wasn't trying to become something I wasn't. But her words planted doubt inside me like a seed. Maybe I was crossing a line without knowing it. Maybe I was helping too much. Maybe staying was selfish. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. I thought about Allison, about the life she had lived here, about the space she left behind. I wondered if Cora was right. I wondered if I was just filling a gap that would close again. I wondered if I was doing more harm than good. The next day, Cora spoke again, this time in front of Aiden. The children need a real mother, not a girl who plays games. My chest tightened. Shame rushed up fast, hot and painful. I stared at the floor. I waited for silence. I waited for the words to disappear into the room and be forgotten. But silence did not come. Aiden spoke. His voice was calm, firm. Ava makes my children feel safe, he said. Cora looked shocked. Aiden continued, that matters more than rules. I didn't look at him. I was afraid if I did, something inside me would break. After that, Cora left the room angry. The air felt thick. Aiden turned to me and said quietly, you did nothing wrong. Those words cracked something open inside of me, not in a painful way, in a healing way. Still, doubt stayed. It clung to me like a shadow. That night, I went to my room and packed my bag. Slowly, quietly, like a person trying to disappear without making noise. I folded my clothes carefully, even though my hands were shaking. I touched the children's drawings on my desk. I remembered Nico's laugh, Hazel's small smile. My chest felt tight. I sat on the bed and cried silently, pressing my hand to my mouth so no sound would escape. I didn't know if staying was right. I didn't know if leaving was wrong. I only knew that helping others sometimes means standing between grief and judgment. It means being misunderstood. It means being tested. And that night, as my bag lay open on the floor, I wasn't sure I was strong enough to keep standing there. Chapter 6. Almost Leaving Without a Sound. My bag was open on the floor. It looked small, almost harmless, like it couldn't possibly carry the weight of what I was about to do. A few folded clothes, a pair of shoes, papers pressed flat. Everything I owned fit inside it, but the decision in front of me felt enormous, heavy, bigger than the room, bigger than the night itself. I stood there for a long time staring at the open bag, as if it might speak first and tell me what to do. I told myself, leave before morning, leave before they see, leave before it becomes harder. That plan felt clean, quiet. No explanations, no promises broken out loud, just disappearance. I had disappeared before. I knew how to do it well. My hands moved slowly as I placed another shirt inside the bag. I didn't fold it properly. I didn't care how it looked. My fingers were shaking, not from cold, but from the noise inside my chest. Cora's words repeated in my head, sharp and clear. You don't belong. You're getting too close. They need control, not comfort. I pressed my lips together and whispered, stop. But thoughts don't listen. They circle and return, louder each time. I sat on the bed and held my head in my hands. I tried to remember why I came here. I came for work. I came because I needed money. I came because I had nowhere else to go. That was the truth at the beginning, but it wasn't the whole truth anymore, and that scared me. When the heart gets involved, pain follows. I had learned that lesson early in life. Caring meant risk. Belonging meant loss. Leaving quietly felt safer. If I left now, before morning, before questions, maybe the pain would be smaller. One clean cut instead of many small ones. That idea almost convinced me. I stood up again and reached for the zipper. Then I heard a soft voice behind me. Ava. I turned slowly. Hazel stood in the doorway. She was still in her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She looked worried, very worried. Her eyes moved from my open bag to my face, then back again, like she was trying to understand something without asking. "Are you going away?" she asked. My throat closed. No sound came out at first. I knelt slightly so we were closer to the same height. I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't cooperate. "Why do you think that?" I asked. She pointed at the bag. "When people pack, they leave." Her words weren't childish, they were learned. They came from memory, not imagination. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "Mom packed like that." Something broke inside me, not because she was dramatic, not because she cried, because she was calm, and calm grief is the heaviest grief of all. I reached out, then stopped. I didn't touch her. I didn't want to confuse her with comfort I wasn't sure I could keep giving. "I'm here right now," I said softly. Hazel nodded, but her eyes didn't relax. She stepped back slowly and walked away without another word. That hurt more than tears would have. A few minutes later, Nico appeared in the same doorway. He didn't hesitate. He looked straight at the bag, then at me. He didn't ask a question at first. He said, "If you go, who will sit with us?" The words landed hard. There was no anger in his voice, no drama, just truth. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. He crossed his arms and added, "Grown-ups always say they will stay." Then he turned and walked away. His steps were slow and heavy. Each one sounded louder than it should have in the quiet house. Those footsteps followed him down the hallway and stayed in my ears long after he disappeared. I sat back on the bed and stared at my bag. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air in the room. I wanted to believe leaving was kinder, that it would hurt once and then fade. But another thought arrived, unwanted and sharp. Maybe leaving teaches them that everyone goes. I didn't know which truth was worse. I didn't know which pain would last longer. The house grew quieter as the night deepened. I sat there, frozen between choices, until I heard footsteps again, slower this time, heavier. Aiden stood at my door. He didn't knock. He looked at the open bag and asked quietly, "Are you leaving?" I nodded. He stepped inside and sat down on the chair across from me. For a long moment, he said nothing. He just looked at the bag, at the floor, at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was different than before. Not cold, not strong, honest. "After Allison died, I stopped choosing." He paused, then continued. "I thought silence would protect us. I thought if I didn't decide anything, nothing else would be taken away." His hands were shaking now. "I let the house stay quiet. I let the children stay alone." I listened without interrupting. "You changed that, not by force, by staying." I whispered, "Staying hurts." He nodded. "So does leaving." That sentence stayed between us, heavy and true. Then he said the one thing that mattered most. He said, "I'm not asking you to fix us. I'm asking you not to disappear." Hope scared me more than fear ever had. Fear was familiar. Hope meant there was something real to lose. I looked at him and told the truth, the whole truth. "I'm scared to belong." He met my eyes and said, "So am I." And for the first time, we were equal, two people afraid of losing what they had just found. He didn't ask me to promise forever. He didn't ask for love. He only said, "Stay tomorrow." Tomorrow felt possible. Just one more day, one more choice. I nodded and said, "Yes, just tomorrow." Chapter 7. When someone finally spoke the truth. The next evening, Aiden asked if we could talk. He didn't sound nervous, but I could hear effort in his voice, like each word had to pass through something heavy before it came out. We sat facing each other at the small table in the living room. The lights were low, the house was quiet. Silence came first, But it wasn't the old silence. It wasn't the silence that hid things. It wasn't the silence that avoided pain. This silence was full. It held meaning. It waited. Aiden didn't look at me right away. He stared at his hands resting on the table, his fingers loosely interlocked. He took a slow breath, then another. Finally, he spoke. I haven't been fair to anyone. The words were simple, but they carried weight. He didn't rush to explain. He let them sit between us, like they deserved space. Then he continued, his voice steady but low. Allison was lonely, he said. Not unloved, unseen. My chest tightened. He didn't say it with anger. He didn't say it with blame. He said it with clarity, like someone finally naming a truth they had been circling for years. I chose work, he went on. I chose responsibility. I told myself I was providing, but I stopped being present. He swallowed. I lost her before I lost her. Those words didn't sound like excuses. They sounded like scars, old ones reopened. He wasn't trying to make himself look better. He was letting himself be seen, even if what was seen wasn't kind. He talked about the days after her death, how he locked everything inside, grief, guilt, fear, how he believed silence would make the pain sleep. But pain doesn't sleep. It waits. It gathers strength in the quiet. I thought if I didn't choose anything, he said, nothing else could be taken away. I listened without interrupting. This wasn't a moment to fix or reassure. It was a moment to witness. He spoke about Cora next. His tone didn't harden, but it changed. She thinks she protects my sister's memory, he said, but she protects her anger. He paused. Anger feels easier than grief. Anger feels active. Grief feels endless. He shook his head slightly. But control is not love. Then he said something that surprised me. When you came, the house didn't change, he said quietly. I changed. He finally looked at me then. Really looked. His eyes were tired, but open. You stayed when it was uncomfortable, he said. You stayed when there were no clear answers. That reminded me what care looks like. My eyes burned. Tears rose quickly, unexpectedly. I didn't push them away. I didn't hide them. I let them come. I never wanted to replace anyone, I said. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. I never wanted to take a place that wasn't mine. I just didn't want the children to feel alone. He nodded without hesitation. I know. That word mattered more than any promise. The next day, Cora came again. I felt it the moment she arrived. The air shifted. The house tightened. Nico grew quiet. Hazel stayed close to me. But this time, something was different. Aiden didn't step back. He didn't avoid her. He didn't stay silent. He spoke first. Cora, he said calmly, we need to talk. She laughed softly, like she didn't expect resistance. She made a sharp comment, then another. She spoke about loyalty, about memory, about what Allison would have wanted. Her words were fast, emotional, sharp. Aiden didn't raise his voice. Healing is not betrayal, he said. The sentence landed hard. He continued, steady and clear. The children need safety, not control. They need truth, not fear. Ava is not taking anything from anyone. Cora's face tightened. Anger flared. She said sharp things, accusations, old pain dressed as certainty. But Aiden didn't break. He didn't defend himself. He didn't attack her. He set boundaries. If you want to be here, you need to respect how we heal. If you can't, then you can't stay. Cora laughed bitterly. She said she wouldn't come back, and she didn't. When the door closed behind her, the house felt different. Not happy, not light with joy, but lighter, like a weight had been lifted from our chests, like we could breathe without permission. That night, Nico asked a question while we were sitting together in the living room. Is Aunt Cora angry? Aiden didn't hesitate. He didn't soften the truth or hide it behind comfort. He is hurt, he said. Hazel looked up. Will she come back? Not right now, Aiden answered. There was no fear in his voice, no apology, no uncertainty, just honesty. The children accepted it because children can handle truth when adults stop lying to themselves. Later, after they went to bed, Aiden and I sat quietly again. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Something important had shifted. Not finished, not healed, but started. I went to my room and sat on the bed. I thought about everything that had been said, about how long it had taken for the truth to arrive. I realized something then. This was not a love story yet. This was a truth story. And truth, once spoken, builds something stronger than silence ever could. For the first time since I arrived, I felt clarity instead of confusion. The future was still unknown, hard moments would still come, but I finally understood where I stood, and that understanding felt like peace. Chapter 8. Belonging Without Fantasy. Time didn't fix pain in one day. It didn't arrive with answers or sudden relief. Nothing magical happened. There was no loud joy, no perfect family picture, no moment where everything felt complete. Life didn't pause and reset. It kept moving, slowly, carefully, the way it always does after something breaks. But something quiet started growing. Trust. It didn't announce itself. It didn't ask to be noticed. It showed up in small ways, almost invisible at first. Hazel began humming again while she played with her toys. The sound was soft, unsure, like she was testing whether it was still allowed. No one stopped her. No one corrected her. We just listened. Nico started asking questions again. Not big questions at first, simple ones. About school, about how things worked, about what would happen tomorrow. Questions meant he was looking forward instead of back, even if only a little. Aiden began sitting with the children instead of watching from the hallway. Sometimes he didn't speak at all. He just stayed. His presence no longer felt distant. It felt grounded. One night, while we were all sitting quietly in the living room, Nico asked a question that made the room still. Will you forget Mom one day? The words hung in the air. Hazel stopped moving. I held my breath without realizing it. Aiden didn't rush to answer. He looked at Nico carefully, the way you look at someone when you know the answer matters. No, he said. Love doesn't disappear. It learns to live with new days. Nico thought about that for a moment. Then he nodded. That sounds fair. Hazel nodded too. Children understand fairness better than adults think. They don't need perfect explanations. They need honesty that respects their feelings. That night, I realized how much Aiden had changed. He didn't avoid the truth anymore. He didn't hide behind silence. He trusted his children with reality, and they trusted him back. I learned to speak honestly too. One evening, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep, I told Aiden something I had been carrying for a long time. I was scared to stay, I said, because staying means caring. He looked at me and nodded. Caring is risky, he said, but not caring is worse. We didn't talk about love. We didn't need to. Something deeper was building between us. Respect, trust, partnership, the kind that grows slowly without pressure, the kind that doesn't demand promises before it feels ready. Weeks passed, then months. The house didn't become loud. It didn't fill with noise or excitement. It became warm. Warmth lived in the spaces between us, in shared meals, in quiet evenings, in the way no one rushed to fill silence anymore. Silence had changed. It was no longer heavy, it was peaceful. One evening, Hazel asked me a question that surprised me. If you leave one day, she said. Will you tell us? The question wasn't fearful. It was careful, honest. I knelt down so we were face to face. I didn't answer quickly. I wanted my words to be true. Yes, I said. I will never leave without words. She looked relieved. Her shoulders relaxed. Nico added quietly, That matters. And in that moment, I realized what this really was. Not a romance story, a truth story, a staying story. I wasn't teaching them how to avoid pain. I was teaching them that people don't have to disappear, that endings don't have to be silent, that honesty is a form of safety. Later, Aiden asked me a simple question. Are you happy here? I didn't answer fast. I thought carefully, listening to myself instead of giving the expected response. I feel safe, I said. He nodded. That's better than happy. One afternoon, while we were sitting together, Nico said something casually, like it had always been true. You are part of us now. Hazel smiled and added, Families can grow. They said it like a fact, not a wish, not a hope, a truth they had already accepted. My chest tightened, and I had to look away for a moment. I didn't cry then. I let the feeling settle quietly inside me. That night, after the children were asleep, Aiden asked me to stay longer, not as a helper, as family. There was no kneeling, no dramatic speech, no perfect promises, just truth. We will still have hard moments, he said. I know, but we will face them together, he said. And I said yes. Not loudly, not emotionally, calmly, because this wasn't a story about love arriving like fireworks. It didn't explode into existence. It didn't blind us or change everything overnight. It was a story about love as consistency, about choosing to stay again and again, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, even when leaving would be easier. Life didn't turn into a dream after that. There were still sad days, days when Hazel missed her mother deeply, days when Nico felt angry and confused, days when Aiden felt tired and unsure, days when I questioned myself. But now, no one faced those days alone. That was the difference. That was the gift. I often think about the girl I was when I first rang that doorbell. She was afraid. She was tired. She only wanted a job. She didn't know she was walking to her true home. Some homes are not places. They are people. And I didn't mean to become his wife. I just didn't leave.